because those things ought not to be in the building. Okay, the job of public education is not to tell people what to think, it's to help people learn how to think critically about text. As much as I would want somebody to be able to read scripture from the Bible, I'd want them to think critically, even if they were not Muslim, to look at the Quran and read scriptures from there. And help people evaluate texts. As a former reading teacher, this is what I would do with my students, is to help students evaluate texts and think critically about them. And you know, I think the other part is, and I'll just echo this, is that it is so important to make students feel included and comfortable and to see themselves as belonging in this world. And I think that the ways in which we identify with who we are is constantly evolving and expanding. As a Latino, I'm reminded of the fact that Mexican Americans weren't always called Mexican Americans, that a long time ago they were called whites. Yeah. And then at times they were just called Hispanic and Latino, and Puerto Ricans got lumped in with Mexicans and all this other kind of stuff. And so the ways in which we understand ourselves and identify as one thing or another is evolving. And it's really important that we make sure that we're doing everything we can to give students the tools to evaluate text and to understand how they see themselves in it and how those texts help them understand the world around them. I don't think we should be banning books. You know, I think we ought to listen carefully. You know, parents have concerns and be thoughtful, you know, and really pay attention. But I think a lot of what's happening right now in the state of Texas and other places around the country is an effort to sanitize history.
Well, this next question will reverse the order again. It'll be Matt, Elliot, Kim, and Charles. What is your position on teacher incentive pay based on student performance? And how might student performance be measured?
Yeah, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I'm not a big fan of, you know, the STAR test. Again, I worked in a public school, in a middle school, and we had something called the DC CAS. And the DC CAS was useless for us because the population that our school had, we had a lot of students that had been neglected over the years, and they ended up on our campus. And doing a lot of measurement with achievement tests that say, can you jump this high? And students have not been taught to jump that high. Guess what? A lot of our kids would put in so much work, they would feel so terrible at the end of the year because they would get told, I know you did all this work. I know that you grew 3 reading levels in a single year, and yet you are failing. You failed this year. I mean, that is devastating and destructive. And I you know, teacher incentive programs, they're complicated. On one hand, in a time like right now when we're not making sure that people earn a living wage, you know, if there's an opportunity to create a teacher incentive program that is actually going to earn teachers more resources and be able to put more food on the table, would I be for that? Absolutely. If that was the only tool that was available. My preferred choice would be making sure that teachers have a living wage. I think districts don't always have the tools to ensure that that is happening, and that's I think what Charlie was talking about, that we have this issue not just here in Texas, but also across the country. But if I was going to implement a performance evaluation system, it would not be with achievement-oriented metrics. So it would be, I would advocate that we are implementing a very rigorous and strict system that's oriented around growth metrics. I think those are more reflective of the work that happens in classrooms every day, day in and day out, week in and week out. And it's really important, not just for teachers to have their work reflected, but also for students to realize, hey, I put in this work. And you know what? Not only did I recognize that I grew this much, and I'm being celebrated for this growth, and in fact, I'm motivated to continue growing that much, but also, look, the entire classroom, my teacher, everyone is being celebrated for this growth. And what we saw in a couple of years of focusing on growth is that we had some of the most growth on those achievement-oriented tests. And so sometimes I think we're focusing on the wrong things, and I think if we were gonna do a system like this, I'd wanna prioritize growth-oriented metrics.
Well, I'm not as eloquent as Matt, but I do agree with him. And I think the problem with those incentives is that you'll have districts in more affluent areas who actually, you know, the parents have the funds to pay for private tutors and all this, and of course, that's where the incentives are gonna go, right? And again, I think the measure should, like Matt says, be growth, not the achievement test. Because they do, I mean, we've seen it in our district, Charlie, right? And, I mean, some of our teachers, they came up with a system where, you know, they showed us with the sticky notes on the board and stuff, and how these kids were moving up and their progress. And I think that was amazing. It was amazing to see it, it was visual, you could see it, and that's where I'm at with that.
I just want to clarify the question. When you talk about incentives, you're saying that the teachers would earn incentives for better student scores?
Yes, so it would be, teacher incentive pay based on student performance.
Right. Totally in favor of it. I think it's a wonderful idea. It's the way the game of life is played. Everybody does not perform equally. Teachers are not all equal. We like to think that everybody, you know, has basic civil rights, which they do. However, not everybody has the same intellect or interest or ability. Some teachers are better than others. And I don't mean to say that to offend anyone. Everybody's got their own skill set, but not everybody has the same abilities. That's the way out in the real world it works, is you do better than somebody else, you get a bonus. And that's I think, a good idea for teachers. It's something that could help the students if maybe the teacher was able to reach down inside themselves and come up with, you know, some additional methods of pedagogy that would work and produce better scores. So, I mean, it's all hypothetical, but I'm all in favor of performance bonuses, and I think the teachers would benefit and the kids would benefit. I just want to also point out that there are teachers that are bad teachers. In the news recently, 269 teachers were fired this year in the first 6 months because of sexual crimes against their students. So, you know, the thing is, you have to recognize that and reward the good teachers, and that will keep them on board. They won't go looking around if they're getting, you know, a nice bonus and they've got happy kids.
I go along with Matt on this issue. I love what Del Valley does. Their program is that if teachers at Hornsby, they come up with a better idea to increase test scores, that it's brought district-wide. There's a collaboration between all the teachers. A go, no-go system, where I believe that that would work great for students. You meet it, you go. You don't meet it, you don't go. It's just plain and simple. And right now, stipends, we bring up stipends just about every month. at our meetings, that we need to increase the stipends in some areas. So I'd like to see they do away with the star, do a different system, like what Matt said, student-based, performance-based. That's my opinion on that.